Welcome in, everyone. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into Bank Rakyat Indonesia, or BRI as most people know it. We've got their interim consolidated financial statements as of September 30, 2024, and all the notes that come with them. We're basically on a mission to kind of like figure out what's really happening behind all these numbers.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a financial detective mission almost, not just looking at the surface stuff, but really digging deep into BRI's performance, their strategy, and hopefully getting some clues about where they might be going.
Yeah, and you know what's really interesting about BRI is their history. It's not like they just appeared out of nowhere, right?
Hmm.
They had a story that goes way back to 1898, and they were focused on a pretty specific part of the Indonesian population back then. They didn't actually become a limited liability company until 1992, and then went public a few years after that. What's fascinating is how all of that history has shaped what they're doing today. Their focus on things like financial inclusion and microfinance. They've really become a key player in helping individuals and communities all across Indonesia.
Totally. And I bet that long history is a big reason why there's such a big deal in Indonesia. They've got a huge network of customers. But let's get into the nitty-gritty here and take a look at the actual financials. What's the story these statements are telling us?
Well, one of the first things that kind of jumps out at you is that their total assets have gone down compared to the end of 2023. Now, that might seem a little weird at first, but we really need to look at the whole picture here. Their net cash flow from operating activities has also decreased. But that doesn't necessarily mean something's wrong. Actually, their total equity that's attributable to the parent entity has increased quite a bit. So what this suggests to me is that they might be managing their assets in a very strategic way. They're more focused on stability in the long term, rather than just going for quick gains.
Okay, so it's not as easy as saying more assets automatically equals good, right? They're really thinking carefully about their financial moves. What I'm really curious about is how all their subsidiaries fit into this picture. They've got a pretty diverse portfolio, don't they?
Oh, they do. It's like each subsidiary tells a different part of BRI's story. Take BRI Agro, for example. They're all about agribusiness. And if you look at the statements, you can see their issued capital stock has recently gone up. This tells me that BRI is really serious about supporting that sector. They probably see it as super important for Indonesia's economy. Then there's Bank Raya, their digital banking branch. That's a pretty bold move. It shows they're not stuck in the past. They're embracing the future of finance. They've even launched this program called MESOP, which goes beyond just your typical stock options.
Oh, hold on. Can you break that down for me? I know what stock options are, but what's so different about MESOP?
Right, so MESOP stands for Management and Employee Stock Options Plan. It's not just about giving employees a paycheck. It's about giving them a piece of the pie, a stake in the company's success. This motivates them to think like owners, helps drive long-term growth, and makes them feel more connected to the company.
Wow, that's pretty cool. It's like they're building a culture of shared success that could be a really powerful motivator for employees. Okay, so what about the rest of their subsidiaries?
Well, you've got BRI Life. They've seen some serious growth in their total assets, and they recently teamed up with FWD Management Holdings Limited. This gives them access to a whole global network and a ton of expertise. So they're really stepping up their insurance game.
Ah, so they're not just thinking locally, they're going global. Very strategic.
Exactly. Then you've got BRI Finance. Their focus is pretty much all about financing activities.
Yeah.
And they just updated their Articles of Association,
Yeah.
which is probably them adjusting to all the changing regulations.
Always staying ahead of the game. Okay, and then there's BRI Insurance, which they just acquired from Dana Penstein BRI. It seems like they're really trying to establish themselves in the insurance market.
Absolutely. And it's all part of their overall strategy. This diverse portfolio is helping BRI expand their reach, not just within Indonesia, but globally. They've got BRI Global Financial Services, which is based in Hong Kong, and 4 branch offices. So they're making some waves in the international financial scene.
Wow, they've got some serious global ambitions. But managing a network like that can't be easy, especially with all the different currencies.
Oh yeah, you're totally right. Each subsidiary works with different functional currencies,
Mm.
which makes things a bit more complicated when we look at their consolidated financial statements. They have to translate everything back into rupiah, and that can definitely affect the numbers we see.
Makes sense. Speaking of challenges, what about risk management? With so much going on, how are they staying on top of things, making sure they don't run into any trouble?
Well, this is where BRI's proactive approach really shines through. They've got this really solid risk management framework that covers pretty much everything. Credit risk, liquidity risk, market risk, you name it. They're not just sitting around hoping for the best. They're actively looking for vulnerabilities and addressing them.
So what's their secret weapon in this risk management game?
Well, they've got a whole arsenal, actually. They use these things called internal risk ratings to figure out how creditworthy their borrowers are. They have early warning indicators to spot problems before they become disasters. And they track these key risk indicators to see their exposure in real time.
Wow, they're really covering all their bases. It's like they're playing financial chess, always thinking several moves ahead.
Exactly. And they're always making sure they're in line with the latest regulations from Bank Indonesia. They even switched from using the loan to funding ratio, or LFR, to the macroprudential intermediation ratio, which is called RIM.
Wait, hold on. What exactly is RIM?
It's basically a new way to measure how well a bank can manage its liquidity and avoid systemic risks. It's Bank Indonesia's way of trying to keep the whole financial system stable. The fact that BRI switched over shows they're committed to following the latest regulatory standards.
That's a great point. It shows they're not just thinking about their own internal risks, but they're also playing their part in making sure Indonesia's financial system is healthy.
Exactly. And that commitment to the bigger picture also extends to their sustainability initiatives.
Oh yeah, I was just getting to that. They've been making headlines with those green shelf registration bonds, haven't they?
They have. And they even went and developed this whole sustainability framework. It outlines exactly what criteria a project needs to meet for them to consider it an eligible project. So they're not just throwing money at anything with a green label. They're being really strategic about where their investments go.
Okay, so it's more than just good PR. They're actually putting their money where their mouth is. What sorts of projects are they supporting?
They're all over the place, from infrastructure projects that are designed to promote sustainable development to backing renewable energy initiatives. And they're not forgetting about the social side things either. They're investing in projects that help communities develop and grow.
That's awesome. They're really trying to make a positive impact in a lot of different areas. But what about the people who work for them? How are they treating their employees?
Well, BRI understands that their employees are their most valuable asset. They've got all these great employee programs in place, like pension plans, healthcare benefits, and even employee stock option plans.
So they're not just focused on making money, they're investing in the well-being of their workforce.
Exactly. And they're really committed to transparency, especially when it comes to those related party transactions. They make sure everything is done by the book and in the best interest of everyone involved. They lay it all out in the statements, no secrets.
That's really important, especially for a financial institution. It builds trust, but, even with the best intentions, sometimes things go wrong. What's the legal landscape looking like for them? Are there any legal issues they're dealing with?
Well, the statements do mention a few legal cases and lawsuits,
Yeah.
mostly stuff to do with contract compliance. But BRI seems pretty confident that these cases won't have a major impact on their business or their financial standing. They probably have a good legal team working everything out.
That's good to hear. Sounds like they're on top of things. But wow, we've covered a lot of ground already. Before we go any further, what are some of the things that really stand out to you from this financial snapshot? What's really caught your attention?
Okay, so we've kind of established that BRI is this huge, complex institution with a global reach, and they're involved in, like, everything. It's pretty impressive. But I'm not going to lie, it's also a little overwhelming. I'm starting to think we need a whole team of analysts just to wrap our heads around the sheer volume of transactions and financial stuff they're dealing with. It's definitely a lot to take in. Just look at their placements with other banks. As of September 30th, 2024, they had over 1,324,757 million rupiah, just in U.S. dollars alone.
Whoa, that's a lot of zeros. And I bet that's just a small piece of their total placements, right? I mean, they probably have placements in tons of different currencies.
You got it. Their placements are all over the place in lots of different currencies, which makes sense given their global presence. And it's part of their strategy to diversify their assets across different regions. But it's not just about spreading things out. They're also being really choosy about where they put their money.
So where are all these funds actually going?
Well, their investment portfolio is pretty interesting. They've got a lot invested in government bonds, both in Indonesian rupiah and foreign currencies. That gives them a nice steady stream of income. But what I find really interesting is their investment in sukuk.
Sukuk. Remind me what those are again?
Oh, right. They're Islamic bonds. Basically, financial instruments that follow Islamic Sharia law. The fact that BRI is investing in sukuk tells me a couple things. First, they're not just obsessed with getting the highest returns possible. They're also thinking about catering to a wider range of investors. And they're recognizing how important Islamic finance is becoming globally.
Ah, I see. That's actually a really smart move.
Yeah.
It fits perfectly with their whole commitment to financial inclusion. They're not just making financial services accessible, they're making sure investment opportunities align with different ethical and religious principles. That's pretty forward thinking. Okay, so we've got the placements, we've got the investments. What else jumps out at you from these statements? Anything that gives us clues about how they operate?
This might get a little technical, but their accounting policies offer some interesting insights. In recent years, they've made some pretty big changes. Most notably, the implementation of PSAK 73, which is basically the Indonesian version of IFRS 17, the International Accounting Standard for Insurance Contract.
Okay, full disclosure, I'm not exactly an accounting expert. Can you explain that in simple terms? What does PSA K73 mean for BRI and why should our listeners care?
Sure, so imagine you're running an insurance company. You're getting premiums from people, and you're going to have to pay out claims at some point. PSAK 73 basically says you have to be more sophisticated about how you account for all of that. You have to consider things like the time value of money and factor in the uncertainty of future events. It's all about making sure their financial reports are a true reflection of their insurance business.
Okay, so it's about being more transparent and accurate with their financial reporting. Gotcha.
Huh.
It shows they're committed to playing by the rules
Mhm.
and presenting a clear picture of their financial health.
Exactly. And they're not stopping there. They've also implemented other accounting standards, like the ones for leases and revenue recognition, all with the goal of being as transparent and accurate as possible.
It seems like transparency is a big deal for BRI. Speaking of transparency, what about those related party transactions? Those can be a bit of a red flag if they're not handled properly.
Yeah, you definitely have to watch out to those. But BRI does a great job of disclosing all the details of these transactions. They make sure everything is done fairly. And in the best interest of everyone involved, it's all right there in the statements. No funny business.
That's good to hear. It builds trust. Now, earlier we talked about risk management, and you mentioned they have this comprehensive framework. But honestly, anyone can have a framework. The real question is, are they actually putting it into practice? What makes you so confident that they're walking the walk when it comes to risk management?
Well, their approach to credit risk is particularly impressive. They've gone above and beyond the traditional methods. They've developed some really sophisticated models to assess how creditworthy their borrowers are and estimate how much money they might lose.
So they're not just relying on gut feelings or simple financial ratios.
They're bringing in some serious analytical power.
And they're not just looking at what happened in the past, right?
That
They're trying to predict the future, too.
Exactly. They're using all sorts of forward-looking indicators, trying to anticipate what's going to happen in the economy and adjust their risk assessments accordingly.
So they're not just reacting to the market, they're trying to get ahead of it. It's like they have a crystal ball for the economy.
Uh-huh, kind of. They even run these things called stress tests, where they simulate extreme scenarios to see how their portfolio would hold up in a crisis. It's all about being prepared for anything.
That's really smart. It shows they're not just thinking about the good times, they're planning for the bad times, too. It's good to see that level of caution, especially with how unpredictable things are these days.
Absolutely. But it's not all about avoiding risk. They're also looking for opportunities to grow. And their global expansion is a perfect example of that. They're not content with just being a big fish in a small pond. They want to play on the world stage.
That's a bold move. Taking on the international market is no joke. What makes you think they have what it takes to succeed globally?
Well, for one thing, they're not just dipping their toes in the water. They're making some serious investments in key areas, like digital banking. They recognize that's the future of finance. They're not afraid to embrace new technology and adapt to what customers want.
They're not just chasing the latest trends, they're making strategic moves for the future.
Exactly. And let's not forget about their commitment to sustainability. They're not just talking the talk, they're actually putting their money into projects that are good for the environment and society. It's all part of their long-term vision for a more sustainable and inclusive future.
It's like they're trying to make the world a better place while also being a successful business. That's a pretty powerful combination.
It is. And all of these initiatives, from risk management to global expansion to sustainability, are all built on a strong foundation of corporate governance.
Ah, yes. The often forgotten but absolutely crucial part of any successful organization. What makes you say BRI has good corporate governance?
Well, they have a very clear governance structure with clearly defined roles and responsibilities. for the board of directors, management, and everyone else involved. They've also got robust internal controls and risk management systems to make sure they're complying with regulations and their own internal policies.
So it's not just about having good intentions, it's about having the systems and processes in place to make sure those intentions translate into action?
Exactly. And their commitment to corporate governance is clear. When you look at all the information they disclose about related party transactions, executive compensation, and all those other important governance matters, they're not trying to hide anything. They're putting it all out in the open.
That's a good sign. It shows they're confident in what they're doing, and they're not afraid of people looking closely. It builds trust with investors, employees, and the public.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And this strong corporate governance gives them the freedom to go after their strategic goals with confidence and integrity. It's a key ingredient in their long-term success.
So if we had to sum up everything we've learned so far about BRI, what are the main takeaways? What's the story these financial statements are telling us?
The story is that BRI is this complex, dynamic, and innovative institution that's playing a huge role in shaping the Indonesian economy, and even beyond. They're a leader in financial inclusion, risk management, sustainability, and corporate governance. They're constantly evolving to meet the challenges and opportunities of the global financial landscape.
It's definitely a fascinating story, and I'm sure our listeners are starting to appreciate just how big and complex this institution really is. But as with any deep dive, there's always more to explore. There's a human element to all of this that we haven't really touched on yet.
You're right. Behind all the numbers, the financial statements, the corporate strategies, there are real people whose lives are affected by what BRI does.
That's a great point. In the next part, we'll dig into BRI's commitment to their employees, their social responsibility initiatives, and the broader impact they're having on Indonesian society. All right, so we've spent a lot of time looking at BRI from a financial perspective, all the numbers and stuff. But as we kind of hinted at last time, there's a whole other side to this story, one that goes beyond the balance sheets and profits.
Totally. BRI's success isn't just about the numbers, it's also about their employees, their dedication, and their commitment to giving back.
Right. So let's talk about the people behind BRI. We touched on their employee programs earlier, and it's obvious they put a lot of resources into their workforce. But what about the culture? What's it like to actually work there?
Well, from what I've seen, BRI goes beyond just offering good pay and benefits. They really try to create a culture of respect, inclusivity, and collaboration. They get that their employees are what make everything work.
It's like that saying, take care of your employees and they'll take care of your business. Seems like BRI really believes that.
For sure. And that commitment extends beyond their own company walls. They do a lot in the community through their social responsibility programs. They're involved in all kinds of stuff: education, healthcare, economic empowerment. They really want to make a difference in the lives of everyday Indonesians.
Yeah, their BRI Peduli program is a great example. It's not just about donating money. They're actually out there getting involved. Disaster relief, community development, environmental conservation.
Exactly. They understand that business success and social progress go together. It's not just about taking profits. It's about investing in a better future for everyone.
And then there's the BRI Microfinance Foundation. That's a perfect example of their dedication to financial inclusion.
Right. They're not just focused on the big players. They're helping the people who are often ignored by traditional banks, giving them access to financial services, helping them build a better future for themselves and their families.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It shows that finance can be a force for good. It's not just about making money, it's about empowering people, creating opportunities, making a real difference.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So, looking at the big picture, their financial strength, their commitment to employees, all their social responsibility stuff, where do you see BRI going in the future?
Well, I think you're in a really good position to keep succeeding. They've got a solid foundation and a clear vision. The fact that they're embracing digital banking and sustainability means they're ahead of the curve. They're going to stay relevant and competitive.
And as Indonesia keeps growing, it seems like BRI is going to play an even bigger role in their economy. They're not just along for the ride, they're helping to shape things.
Absolutely. They're setting a great example for other companies, showing that you can be profitable and make a positive impact. It's not one or the other. It's about finding that balance.
Well, this deep dive has been really eye-opening. We've learned so much about BRI, their financials, their global reach, their commitment to sustainability, their dedication to their employees and the community. It's been quite a journey.
Yeah, it has. And like any good journey, it leaves you wanting more. There's always something new to learn, another perspective to consider. I'd encourage everyone listening to do their own research, learn more about BRI. It's a story worth digging into.
I agree. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Bank Rakyat Indonesia. We'll see you next time.